The King has offered his congratulations to Leo XIV. We understand it was a private message.
She's been admired for years for her calm presence and quiet strength. But behind the public appearances and titles lies a story that's gaining new significance. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has long captured public interest, not just for her style or royal status, but for the meaningful way she approaches her role.
What was the best part in the development of the early years project? That, I think, has to be going around the nation, but also meeting amazing people who have done fantastic work.
Now, a recent meeting between King Charles III and the newly elected Pope Leo XIV has added a new layer to Catherine's place in royal and global history. On May 15, 2025, in what many are calling an unexpected and deeply symbolic moment, King Charles and Pope Leo XIV came together for a private audience at the Vatican. It was a meeting that few saw coming, and even fewer expected to have such far-reaching emotional weight. At the heart of their discussion was Catherine. Although she wasn't physically present at the meeting, her name and significance became a focal point. During the conversation, Pope Leo offered a personal blessing, one that wasn't directed at a policy or political issue, but rather at a woman many see as a unifying figure. Pope Leo XIV, previously known as Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, had only recently assumed his role following the passing of Pope Francis on April 21, 2025. His election brought new attention to the Vatican, not just because he is American-born, a first in modern history, but because of his reputation for blending traditional values with a progressive approach. The Vatican, known for its carefully planned diplomatic relations, opened its doors for this significant conversation just weeks after Leo XIV's appointment. It's unusual for such a high-level religious figure and the British monarch, who also serves as the supreme governor of the Church of England, to meet in such intimate and spiritually charged circumstances so soon after a papal transition. The meeting took place at Casa Santa Marta, the modest guest house within the Vatican grounds that became known as Pope Francis's preferred residence. Choosing this location instead of the more formal apostolic palace set the tone for what would follow, a conversation rooted in personal conviction rather than ceremony. The tone of the visit was described by royal aides as emotional, reflective, and at times surprisingly candid. Though the meeting covered a range of global topics, including the challenges posed by ongoing conflicts, economic inequalities, and spiritual disconnection in modern society, one name kept returning: Catherine. King Charles, reportedly carrying a recent photograph of his daughter-in-law, spoke of her with warmth and pride. According to insiders familiar with the exchange, Charles highlighted not only her charitable efforts and public resilience during recent health struggles, but also her unique ability to bring people together across lines of faith, nationality, and status. Those close to the royal household have referred to Catherine in recent months as the unity monarch, a phrase that has been circulating privately within palace circles, and now seems to be gaining traction on a broader stage. While it's not an official title, the phrase suggests something deeper than just ceremonial duties. It implies a symbolic role, one that bridges the monarchy's traditional values with its need to remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. The blessing offered by Pope Leo XIV wasn't part of any formal religious ritual. Instead, it was described as a personal and spiritual gesture, made as he placed his hands on the photograph of Catherine that Charles had brought with him. Camilla, the Queen Consort, was present and reportedly moved to tears during the exchange. While the gesture may have been private, its meaning has echoed publicly. A shared recognition between two major faith leaders that Catherine represents a kind of moral leadership grounded in empathy, dignity, and quiet strength. What makes this moment especially significant is the broader context. King Charles has long been a supporter of interfaith dialogue. Throughout his decades as Prince of Wales and now as monarch, he's spoken often about the need to respect and understand different religious traditions. Pope Leo XIV, too, has emphasized the need for global unity and healing, particularly after years of division and upheaval. The idea of Catherine as a figure who can unite across boundaries doesn't emerge from nowhere. Her public life has shown consistent attention to issues that cut across political or religious divides: mental health, early childhood development, and support for cancer research, to name just a few. Her presence at events, whether speaking with children at a hospital or attending multi-faith services, has been marked by a noticeable absence of formality. Instead, she engages with people directly, often kneeling to speak at eye level with children or taking extra time to listen when most public figures would be ushered along. These qualities haven't gone unnoticed. Over the years, Catherine has steadily earned public respect, not through grand gestures, but through consistency. Her appearances rarely feel staged, and she's known for her hands-on approach. While some royal watchers may once have questioned whether she would fully embrace life within the institution, there's now little doubt that she has not only accepted her role, but is quietly redefining it. This Vatican meeting now acts as a kind of pivot point. It's rare that a member of the royal family is so directly recognized in a religious setting outside the Church of England, especially in such a personal and spiritual way. And while it's King Charles who physically attended the summit, the focus on Catherine may well signal a shift in how the monarchy views its future, not just in terms of succession, but in terms of the soft power and moral influence it seeks to maintain in the modern world. The presence of Catherine's photograph at such a meeting may seem like a small detail, but in the carefully choreographed world of royal and papal diplomacy, nothing is accidental. It suggests that her role within the monarchy is not just evolving, it's being consciously elevated. What's also notable is that the Vatican offered this blessing without fanfare. There was no press release, no official Vatican photo. The details emerged later, through carefully placed statements and background briefings. For those watching closely, this lack of publicity may be exactly the point. Catherine's impact doesn't rely on headlines or public spectacle. Instead, she seems to work best in spaces where sincerity matters more than visibility. That's what gives the idea of the unity monarch weight. It's not just a nickname. It's a recognition of the kind of leadership that operates quietly, steadily, and often behind the scenes. There are few people in public life today who embody that blend of tradition and modernity, compassion and discipline, public duty and private grounding. That's likely why both King Charles and Pope Leo XIV saw fit to symbolically place her at the center of their first meeting. Whether or not this role ever becomes official, the symbolism is already powerful, and the message is clear. In a world facing growing uncertainty and division, there's an urgent need for figures who can bring people together, not through power, but through empathy. Her journey into royal life has never been about fast headlines or controversy. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, there was a sense that Catherine was playing the long game, building trust gradually, focusing on substance over spectacle. Early on, some wondered how she would navigate such a public, demanding role. But now, years later, those doubts have largely faded. What remains is a consistent portrait of someone who understands the weight of her position, but never lets it overshadow her humanity. One of the most defining chapters of her recent life came in 2024, when Catherine was diagnosed with cancer. It was news that shocked not only the UK, but the world. She had always appeared as the picture of health and composure, so the announcement felt particularly personal for many. But what stood out most wasn't just the diagnosis, it was how she chose to handle it. Rather than withdrawing completely from the public eye or managing the news through intermediaries, she took the rare step of addressing it herself. In a short video, recorded in a calm, understated setting, Catherine explained her condition and treatment in her own words. She thanked the medical team caring for her and spoke with openness about the emotional toll the experience was taking. That moment struck a chord. In a world often dominated by carefully curated public images, here was a future queen consort speaking honestly about fear, vulnerability, and recovery. The video wasn't dramatic. There were no tears or calls for sympathy. It was simply honest. And in that honesty, people found strength. Her remission was announced in early 2025, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. It wasn't just a medical milestone. It felt like a moment of shared relief, as if the public had been holding its collective breath alongside her. But again, it was her response that carried the most meaning. Rather than immediately returning to high-profile events or media interviews, Catherine took a measured approach. She gradually resumed her duties, focusing on smaller, more personal engagements, visiting hospitals, meeting with families, and checking in with charities she had supported long before her illness. These quieter gestures are typical of Catherine's approach to public life. She's not known for sweeping speeches or showy declarations. Instead, her power lies in how she relates to people, particularly those who don't often find themselves in the spotlight. At charity visits, she listens more than she speaks. She asks questions that show she's done her homework, and she often makes a point of engaging with staff as much as with guests or beneficiaries. Observers frequently mention her ability to make people feel seen, whether it's taking a moment to kneel and talk to a child at eye level or offering a warm smile to someone clearly nervous at a formal event. She has a way of easing tension. These are small actions, easy to overlook, but they've become hallmarks of her public identity. They help explain why so many people, from longtime royal fans to those more skeptical, have found something genuinely relatable in her. Away from the cameras, those who know Catherine describe her as thoughtful and grounded. She's said to keep a journal where she writes down lessons and observations, not just about royal life, but about parenting, charity work, and even small reflections on daily moments. Friends have spoken about her love of baking with the children and her tendency to plan family schedules herself, despite a full team of royal staff. It's these behind-the-scenes choices that give depth to her public role. They show someone who hasn't let her royal title strip away the basic priorities of her life: family, service, and sincerity. This balance between public and private duty has become especially visible in her relationship with her children. George, Charlotte, and Louis are often seen in public with their parents, but Catherine is deliberate about maintaining a sense of normalcy. School runs are still done in person when possible. She's been spotted driving herself, often in vehicles that reflect her practical side, like the Audi Q7 or, more recently, the electric Jaguar I-Pace. These choices might seem trivial, but in royal circles, every detail sends a message. And Catherine's choices tend to speak quietly but clearly about her values. Royal events, too, have offered insight into her character. At the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, many were struck by Catherine's composure. In one particularly moving moment, she gently guided Princess Charlotte, who looked overwhelmed by the emotion of the day. The image of mother and daughter, connected in grief and grace, stood out amid the ceremony. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it captured something deeply human. Another example came at the 2023 Chelsea Flower Show, where Catherine, surrounded by children from local schools, effortlessly turned a formal occasion into something playful and warm. She laughed with the children, knelt down beside them to admire their drawings, and listened intently as they explained their projects. These moments might not make front-page news, but they build a narrative, one of a public figure who genuinely cares, and whose impact is measured less by headlines and more by hearts touched. After her remission in early 2025, one of her first international appearances was during a visit to Australia. This trip marked a subtle but important return to form. She spoke at several engagements, focusing on themes of healing, recovery, and unity, messages that carried added weight given her recent health battle. Audiences responded with warmth, and even local media outlets, typically more critical of royal visits, noted the authenticity of her speeches. All of this helps explain why Catherine was the focus of that private moment in the Vatican. Her story, though deeply personal, has come to represent something broader: the idea that quiet leadership can still have a powerful reach. In a time when many public figures feel distant or overly scripted, Catherine's relatability sets her apart. Her ability to show vulnerability without appearing weak, to be public without seeming performative, is a balance few manage to strike. She's also adapted to the times in thoughtful ways. Her interest in sustainability has quietly influenced royal transport choices and public initiatives. She's spoken in support of Charles's long-standing environmental concerns and reportedly explored the idea of transitioning to fully electric vehicles for certain royal duties. These changes are subtle, but they signal a forward-looking approach. They also reflect a growing awareness that the monarchy, to remain relevant, must evolve, not just in appearance, but in purpose. What we're seeing now is a woman who has found her rhythm. The early days of adjustment and public scrutiny are behind her. In their place is a steady, confident presence, one that doesn't demand attention, but commands it naturally. Catherine isn't rewriting the monarchy's rulebook, but she is adding new chapters, ones that speak to empathy, strength through adversity, and a belief in the quiet power of connection. The phrase Vatican pact has started circulating among those close to both the Vatican and Buckingham Palace. It's not an official term. There was no treaty, no signed document, and no photo op. But insiders describe it as a mutual understanding, one centered on Catherine's growing role not just in the British monarchy, but on the world stage. It was, in essence, a spiritual agreement, a shared acknowledgement of her unique position and potential as a unifying force in a fractured global landscape. In a world facing deepening divisions, religious, political, and cultural, figures of symbolic unity are becoming more necessary. That's the space Catherine appears to be stepping into, not through speeches or grand declarations, but through quiet consistency. Her story has evolved from one of royal adaptation to one of meaningful influence. That influence was recognized during the Vatican meeting in ways both personal and deeply symbolic. The setting itself, Casa Santa Marta, carried significance. Known for its simplicity and spiritual grounding, the guest house reflects Pope Leo XIV's preference for humility over grandeur, much like his predecessor, Pope Francis. Holding the meeting there rather than in the more formal apostolic palace signaled a desire for authenticity. It created an environment where deeper conversations could happen, ones not weighed down by tradition or protocol. According to sources familiar with the meeting, King Charles brought with him a recent photograph of Catherine. This simple gesture took on extraordinary meaning when Pope Leo XIV placed his hands on the photo and offered a private blessing. Those in the room described the atmosphere as still and emotional. Queen Camilla, also present, was seen quietly wiping away tears. For a moment, the conversation turned entirely toward Catherine, not as a public figure, but as a person who had faced illness, who had shown resilience, and who had maintained a steady hand through both personal and public challenges. The blessing wasn't meant for headlines. It wasn't recorded or photographed. But those who witnessed it say it marked a turning point, a recognition of Catherine's role not only within the royal family, but within a broader spiritual and humanitarian context. In the eyes of both Charles and Pope Leo, she represented something increasingly rare in public life, a bridge between tradition and progress, faith and action, the personal and the symbolic. This idea of the unity monarch, once whispered in royal circles as a quiet nickname, now feels more like a framework. Not an official title, but a shared understanding of Catherine's evolving place in the world. It's a term that doesn't suggest power or governance. Instead, it signals influence, emotional, spiritual, and symbolic. The conversation between the king and the pope also touched on global conflicts, from Ukraine to Gaza, as well as the growing disconnect many feel from traditional institutions. In that context, Catherine was seen not as a solution, but as a reminder that connection still matters, and that leaders don't always need to be loud to be impactful. The symbolism didn't end with the blessing. As part of the tradition of royal and papal visits, gifts were exchanged. Charles offered a handcrafted wooden cross made from sustainably sourced oak, a gesture that aligned with both leaders' shared concerns about environmental stewardship. The cross was simple but beautifully made, reflecting craftsmanship and intention. In return, Pope Leo XIV gave Charles a medallion engraved with the image of Saint Francis, a symbol of peace, humility, and protection. The gifts, while symbolic, served to reinforce the mutual respect and shared values between the two men. What stood out, though, wasn't what was given, it was what was said. Both Charles and Pope Leo reportedly spoke of Catherine's work with families, her involvement in early childhood initiatives, and her consistent presence at interfaith events. They acknowledged how she's managed to build trust across different communities, even those who may not usually feel a connection to the royal family or institutional religion. Catherine's open approach to faith has also been quietly noted over the years. While firmly rooted in the Church of England, she's attended Catholic services alongside Prince William, participated in Jewish community events, and met with leaders from Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu communities. Her ability to move between these spaces respectfully, without fanfare or agenda, is rare. It's not about promoting a particular message, but about listening, showing up, and being present in a genuine way. This openness and quiet consistency are part of what makes her so effective in the role now being envisioned for her. The Vatican meeting, though private, confirmed what many had already observed. Catherine is becoming a global figure, not through force or fame, but through the steady practice of empathy and inclusion. Her response to her own health challenges has only deepened this perception. During her treatment and recovery in 2024, she stayed largely out of the public eye, but her actions spoke volumes. Choosing to travel in vehicles with tinted windows, like a Range Rover, gave her privacy while still allowing her to perform essential duties. More recently, she's been spotted exploring electric vehicle options, including the Tesla Model X and the Jaguar I-Pace, aligning her public image with the environmental causes championed by Charles. These small choices may seem like personal preferences, but in the context of royalty, they are also public signals, indicators of values and long-term vision. There is growing speculation within royal and Vatican circles about what Catherine's next steps might be. One possibility that's being discussed behind closed doors is a solo visit to the Vatican, perhaps for an interfaith dialogue or humanitarian project. If that were to happen, it would mark a major shift, placing her at the center of international conversations about unity, compassion, and faith. It would also solidify her status not just as a senior royal, but as a global ambassador of sorts, focused not on politics, but on shared human values. It's important to note that none of this appears to be the result of personal ambition. Those close to Catherine often describe her as reluctant to take center stage. She prefers to let her work speak for itself. And yet it's that very reluctance, the absence of self-promotion, that makes her so well suited to this evolving role. She doesn't need to command attention. People listen because she leads with presence, not pressure. As with any emerging narrative around the royal family, things can change. But the Vatican meeting marked more than just a ceremonial encounter. It signaled a deeper alignment between two of the world's oldest institutions and their shared belief in the importance of soft power, spiritual leadership, and human connection. Catherine, whether she expected it or not, is becoming the face of that belief. The Vatican Pact, informal as it may be, now stands as a symbolic milestone. It's not about doctrine or dogma. It's about recognizing that in an increasingly divided world, individuals who embody grace, resilience, and authenticity can offer more than just comfort. They can offer direction, not through authority, but through example. Under King Charles III, the monarchy has shown a clear intention to modernize. There's been a subtle but noticeable shift in tone and focus, less about formal ceremonies and more about purpose, accessibility, and real-world impact. At the center of that shift stands Catherine. She isn't leading it loudly, and she isn't trying to reinvent the institution overnight. What she is doing is showing how a royal figure can still be meaningful in people's lives, by listening, connecting, and leading through service rather than status. Much of this transformation is rooted in her long-standing work through the Royal Foundation. While many royal initiatives come and go, Catherine's projects have remained consistent and focused. One of the clearest examples of this is her work on mental health. From the early days of her public life, she identified it as a critical area, especially for young people and parents. Her involvement in campaigns like Heads Together, alongside Prince William and Prince Harry, helped bring mental health discussions into the mainstream. But she hasn't stopped at awareness. She's taken the next step, engaging with healthcare professionals, educators, and community leaders to understand what's really needed. Her approach is methodical. She listens, takes notes, follows up. It's not about offering quick solutions, but about building a foundation for long-term change. This same approach is evident in the Shaping Us campaign, one of her most ambitious projects to date. Focused on early childhood development, the campaign aims to show how a child's early experiences, from birth to age 5, can shape the rest of their life. It's backed by research, expert consultation, and ongoing public engagement. Educators and psychologists have praised it for its depth and clarity, and it has helped position Catherine as more than a ceremonial figure. She's seen as someone who's actively contributing to serious conversations that affect everyday families. What makes her work resonate isn't just the content, it's the way she delivers it. She doesn't speak from a distance. When she visits a primary school or sits in on a parenting group, she's fully present. She engages, asks thoughtful questions, and often follows up privately, something that rarely makes headlines, but is remembered by those she meets. It's this quality that sets her apart. She doesn't treat royal engagements as performances, but as opportunities for genuine connection. Her international work reflects the same values. Whether it's virtual summits with global child development experts or community visits during state tours, Catherine carries a sense of continuity. She brings the same sincerity to a conversation in a London community centre as she does to a speech at an international conference. That consistency has helped build a reputation that crosses borders and cultural lines. As her role has expanded, so has her influence on the royal family's public image. Catherine has become a symbol of stability within a household that has faced its share of scrutiny. She is someone the public sees not just as a royal, but as a relatable human being. Her ability to balance duty with motherhood, tradition with modern values, has earned her respect across generations. One of the quiet ways she communicates this balance is through her public appearances. Take her approach to transportation. For high-profile state events, she arrives in the Bentley State Limousine, upholding the symbolism expected of her role. But for everyday tasks, school runs, low-key charity visits, she's often seen behind the wheel of a more practical vehicle like the Audi Q7. During her recovery from cancer in 2024, she reportedly preferred the Range Rover, not only for comfort and security, but for the privacy it offered. More recently, she's been linked to electric vehicles, including the Jaguar I-Pace and even the Tesla Model X, aligning her choices with Charles's strong environmental stance. These choices, while small, are telling. They show a woman who thinks about the messages she sends. She doesn't preach about sustainability, but she quietly models it. She doesn't speak often about privacy, but she takes deliberate steps to protect her family's space. In doing so, she communicates values without having to spell them out. Her connection to the next generation is also shaping how the monarchy is perceived. Catherine's interactions with her children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, are carefully balanced. They're public enough to allow people a glimpse into royal family life, but never intrusive. She's often seen offering quiet guidance to Charlotte during events or holding Louis's hand when he starts to get restless in the spotlight. These small moments are often picked up by the press and warmly received by the public. They paint a picture of a mother who's engaged, present, and deeply attuned to her children's needs. Within the family, she's also seen as a trusted partner to Prince William. Friends and aides have noted how she often serves as a calming presence during public engagements, offering reassurance with a glance or a quiet word. She's someone who holds the rhythm of the room without needing to dominate it. It's this quality that reportedly made such an impression during the Vatican meeting. When Charles spoke of her to Pope Leo XIV, he wasn't simply highlighting her achievements. He was describing a person he views as essential to the monarchy's future. Their bond has grown over time, shaped by shared experiences and mutual respect. In private, Charles is said to refer to Catherine as his cherished daughter-in-law. It's a term that carries warmth, but also trust. He's seen how she's navigated challenges, personal, public, and institutional, with integrity. And in doing so, she's earned more than his approval. she's earned his confidence. Looking ahead, there's speculation that Catherine's role could continue to expand internationally. Some insiders suggest she may lead future interfaith or humanitarian missions, including a potential solo visit to the Vatican. If that happens, it would mark another quiet milestone, placing her not just as a British royal, but as a global ambassador of unity and compassion. It would reinforce what was already made clear during the Vatican meeting, that her influence now stretches far beyond palace walls. Even the way she prepares for engagements speaks to her thoughtful nature. According to aides, she often writes her own notes, plans questions, and even sketches layouts for events. It's not about control, it's about care. She wants every encounter to feel authentic, to leave people with the sense that their time mattered. This attention to detail, paired with her openness to spontaneity, helps her remain relatable in a world where royal figures can sometimes feel distant. As the idea of the unity monarch continues to gain traction, it's worth noting that Catherine never asked for the title. It's not official, and there's no formal role tied to it. But it's something that fits her, not because of what she represents on paper, but because of who she is in practice. Someone who leads with empathy, someone who values human connection, someone who has, through experience and character, become a quiet force for change. Her story is far from over. In many ways, it's only just beginning. As public expectations shift, and as institutions look for ways to remain relevant in an evolving world, Catherine is offering a new model of leadership. Not one rooted in power, but in presence. Not one about status, but about service. She's redefining what it means to be royal in the 21st century, gracefully, steadily, and with a sense of purpose that feels both timeless and entirely modern.